Chapter 765, using another blade to kill Jiang Hao had thought that the Heavenly Gate sect was merely displaying their superiority. After all, the Heavenly Note sect didn't possess any profound attainments that could be shown off, and the Spirit Herb Garden was rather at an ordinary level. Yet, members of the Heavenly Gate sect still came to visit and learn. Naturally, it was to showcase their own superiority. However, Jiang Hao didn't expect them to be so arrogant. Fortunately, he didn't have to answer. Otherwise, it would have been troublesome. B0X. Friend, haven't you figured it out yet? Yin Xuanyi asked. Jiang Hao lowered his head respectfully. The reason isn't very complicated. The fragrant nether flower prefers shade, mainly because its roots need coolness. Otherwise, it would absorb moisture from its leaves and branches and cause toxins to cover the whole plant. However, the ice crystal grass surrounds the fragrant nether flower, so it keeps the spirit field cold, and they thrive on toxins. So, the fragrant nether flower gets its coolness from the ice crystal grass, and the grass gets nourishment from the flower. That is the reason for planting them this way. Jiang Hao's response was clear and logical. It left them stunned. Even Bai Yi was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. Junior brother Jiang, don't show off. How could these esteemed seniors not be aware of such small matters? Do you think the disciples from their sect are a bunch of fools? I'm sure the question was just meant as a test for you. Don't get too comfortable. Jiang Hao nodded in agreement and dared not say more. Senior brother Bai was indeed straightforward. He didn't want to stir up any trouble. But even so, these people already had a grudge against him. Sure enough, the 5 people looked displeased. They forced out a smile and made an excuse to leave. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. He could only take things one step at a time. As Jiang Hao arrived at the Spirit Herb Garden the next day, he overheard them discussing something. They said the Heavenly Gate sect was furious. Furious? Jiang Hao wondered if something had happened last night. Didn't they consider the presence of the Divine Corpse sect and the Mountain Sea Sword sect here? Even if they disregarded the Divine Corpse sect, the Mountain Sea Sword sect should still make them reconsider. Upon inquiry, he heard that several more deaths had occurred this time, including individuals with significant status. The issue seemed to have escalated. However, it had nothing to do with him this time. He hadn't done anything. On the other side, in the area where the people from the Heavenly Gate sect were staying, the middle-aged man was furious. He argued with the people from the Heavenly Note sect. After a long time, the people from the Heavenly Note sect eventually withdrew. They seemed to have placated the guests somewhat. At that point, the middle-aged man sat down in the room. He looked furious as well as a bit sad. He also looked somewhat impatient. A woman walked into the room. The people from the Heavenly Note sect have left, the middle-aged man asked. Yeah, they are gone. The woman nodded. The middle-aged man's anger and sadness seemed to dissipate at that. His face showed annoyance. How are they alive? Wasn't it rumored that provoking the Heavenly Note sect was dangerous? Wasn't the Cliff of Broken Hearts supposed to be a risky place? Those 5 people humiliated them, yet they are still alive and well. The Heavenly Note sect has an undeserved reputation. It's said that a few managed to survive by luck. Besides, the 5 people were defeated in the Cliff of Broken Hearts by words alone. No one was angry in the end. Maybe that is why they didn't retaliate, said the woman. Useless. They were defeated by words alone in a sect like the Heavenly Note sect that lacks any foundation. They can't even tend the Spirit Herb Garden well. The middle-aged man shook his head and sighed. The woman hesitated for a moment and asked, "Is that the right thing to do? What's not right about it?" The old man sneered. "These people are just scum. They're not worthy of attention. Why keep them around? Are we tarnishing our sect's reputation? We might as well make the most of it and gain some benefits for our sect. Besides, we're just making them experience the real world of cultivation. If their skills are lacking, who can they blame? In the worst-case scenario, those killed might belong to the Heavenly Note sect. We'll just have to take responsibility for that. Or, we can just blame the Great Thousand God sect." But, the woman felt uneasy. No buts, said the middle-aged man. You know what kind of people they are. There are some we can't touch, but once they are here, no one cares about their status. A demonic sect is a demonic sect. They chose to provoke other people. If they get killed for that, what can the sect say? Will they rage or kill their way to the Heavenly Note sect? Let them come and kill. Those who have held power for too long are already corrupt. Since that's the case, let's use this newly risen sword to ruthlessly slay the corruption within the sect. What's wrong with that? A group of people we can't educate. Let the Heavenly Note sect educate them. Let's see who survives. The woman was silent for a long time. What about the remaining people? Wait a little longer. If they don't die, just kill them and blame it on the Heavenly Note sect. We brought them along, but I have no intention of taking them back, said the middle-aged man indifferently. All right. The woman nodded. They deserved to be killed. Jiang Hao noticed that Liu Xingchen looked excited to visit him. It seemed like he found something amusing yet again. With some members of the sect dead, it was a busy time for the law enforcement hall. If he was here so early, there was probably some progress in the investigation. His excitement suggested that the matter was quite interesting. This time, Jiang Hao wasn't worried because it had nothing to do with him. He was eager for Liu Xingchen to tell him of the new developments. Junior brother Jiang, have you heard? Liu Xingchen asked. Yeah, I heard that many people from the Heavenly Gate sect died. Jiang Hao nodded. Do you know who did it? Liu Xingchen asked again. Jiang Hao thought for a moment before. Wasn't it the Great Thousand God sect? That's what the law enforcement hall concluded. The Great Thousand God sect has been reckless lately. It must be their doing, said Liu Xingchen. Jiang Hao was silent. As far as he knew, the people from the Great Thousand God sect had gone quiet lately. How could they be reckless so suddenly? If the Heavenly Note sect said so, then it must be true. But did the people from the Heavenly Gate sect believe it? Jiang Hao asked this, and Liu Xingchen's answer surprised him. They do, but our sect is still to be blamed. In the end, we can only offer some spots in the corpse realm to appease the Heavenly Gate sect, Liu Xingchen said. However, during our investigation, we found several suspicious individuals. Junior brother, do you know who they might be? Jiang Hao shook his head, but he felt it must be some seniors from the Heavenly Note sect. This kind of thing wasn't new in the sect. First, we found some suspicious individuals from various branches, but they all had alibis, so we didn't pay much attention to them. However, this only accounted for a part of it. Another part led us to the Divine Corpse sect. After the investigation, we found they had picked up a small portion of storage treasures. It's our sect's responsibility to retrieve it for investigation, Liu Xingchen said with a smile. The most interesting part is that the Heavenly Gate sect also had suspicious individuals in their midst. It's truly unexpected. Several people who visited you are all alive and well, Liu Xingchen said as he stared carefully at Jiang Hao. What do you think of that, junior brother Jiang? Jiang Hao chuckled. Nothing. Isn't that normal? True. Liu Xingchen shrugged it off. By the way, let me tell you something. The list of individuals allowed to enter the corpse realm has been revealed, and your name is also on it. Chapter 766. Another person in the lawless tower. He was going to the corpse realm. The news took Jiang Hao by surprise. The opening of the corpse realm this time had nothing to do with him. He had already entered last time, so he didn't need to enter again. Opportunities should be given to others who didn't have it before, and perhaps a truly exceptional individual might emerge. Hence, it was uncommon to allow the same person to enter a secret realm twice. B0x. After all, the effect of the second time was significantly worse than the first. It was better to give this opportunity to someone else. Why am I selected to go? Jiang Hao asked. He didn't expect it. Although he had secretly desired to enter it again, he didn't know if his cultivation realm might pose problems. The peak of the return to Void Realm was the limit to enter the corpse realm. Using simple means to conceal himself might not work. Shongan and Gui had both tried it. Suppressing one's cultivation realm wasn't a problem. But for Jiang Hao, It was more about concealment than suppression. It made things more complicated. He couldn't ask for details and could only try to hide while trying to suppress his cultivation. In theory, hiding his cultivation didn't mean he could escape the notice of the corpse realm. Otherwise, the heavenly steely mountain wouldn't have called for him. Entering without preparation might mean being devoured by the ocean. The reason is simple. Junior brother Jiang, your recent achievements have been remarkable. Such places prioritize disciples with high achievements, regardless of who they are. If their achievements are high, they get priority, said Liu Xingchen. Jiang Hao fell silent for a moment. This was indeed unexpected. However, with adequate preparation, there should be no problems. How were the slots distributed this time? Jiang Hao asked. There were a total of 48 slots. Our sect selected 16 people. The Mountain Sea Sword sect and the Divine Corpse sect selected 10 each. The Heavenly Gate sect selected 12. The Heavenly Gate sect has so many. Jiang Hao was surprised. The Heavenly Gate sect shouldn't have that many people, at least not more than the Mountain Sea Sword sect. It was originally 8, but they were given an additional 4 slots. Liu Xingchen chuckled. Jiang Hao understood. They had suffered significant losses, and they needed to be placated. It made sense. After talking for a while, Liu Xingchen left. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to that and began to plan for the corpse realm. However, there was another matter he was worried about. The issue with flowing waterfall spirit herbs still needed solving. He had appraised the spirit herbs and found issues with them. Someone had intentionally tempered with them. The person behind it was Qiu Luo. It was a name Jiang Hao had encountered before. He had seen the name before in the law enforcement hall's underground city. But Jiang Hao still had no clue who this person actually was. This person wasn't simple at all. He had never provoked the flowing waterfall branch in his life, so why were they after him? This was what confused him. He found no reason for them to do so. It was evident that the other party was exceptionally well informed. But for what purpose? After waiting for a while, Jiang Hao saw Chu Wenwu approach. He was here this time to negotiate the compensation. Jiang Hao lowered his head. The spirit herbs were valuable, but he had no evidence to prove that the issue wasn't due to his method. In this negotiation, he had no advantage. At that moment, Bai Yi arrived too. Whose spirit herbs are they? He asked. It belongs to senior brother Jiao Chen, Chu Wenwu respectfully said. Let him come and discuss this matter with me in person, Bai Yi said. That day, not a single person above the Foundation establishment realm from Flowing Waterfall visited the garden again. The others just gave up on compensation and reclaimed the withered spirit herbs. Jiang Hao was surprised. The other person didn't demand anything further. He thanked senior brother Bai Yi for this. Bai Yi just nodded without saying much. Senior brother Chu was also helpless. On the path of cultivation, no one had it easy. Everyone treaded on thin ice and advanced through difficulties. In the evening, Jiang Hao left the market. He had been selling talismans and hadn't met senior sister Leng Tian and senior brother Duan Guan. He had amassed a little over 10,000 spirit stones. With fewer sect members lately, even earning this much was difficult. He needed to continue accumulating spirit stones. Hong Yuye hadn't visited yet. He needed to prepare things before entering the corpse realm. Otherwise, it would be challenging to buy things inside the corpse realm. He had decided what to do in the corpse realm this time. He intended to use the corpse realm to reach the immortal ascension platform. This way, he would also be considered a strong individual. Although he was not strong enough, he had surpassed many. The immortal ascension platform from the return to void would be a considerable leap. If there was enough time after that, he would try to find the founder of the Divine Corpse sect. Since he was going to the corpse realm, he had to visit the Lawless Tower. It had been a long time since he last visited. He wondered how things were there. He wanted to see what the situation was with Heavenly King Hai Luo. On the other side, Baizhu led Qiao Yi along the mountain path and headed toward the direction of the Lawless Tower. The one leading the way was Yinshaw. Upon hearing that an important client had arrived, she didn't dare neglect them. Senior, Can anyone be redeemed from the lawless tower? Baizhu asked innocently. In theory, yes, Yinsha said without going into much detail. If they refuse to leave, will you release them anyway? Baizhu asked. Yinsha chuckled. They will certainly want to leave. Qiao Yi followed behind. She felt strange. What kind of place could imprison people and trade them like goods? A demonic sect was indeed somewhat surprising. However, she remembered that the person they were after was strong. How had they ended up in such a situation? After a while, the group arrived in front of the lawless tower. Baizhu was excited. It was her first time entering the lawless tower. Almost everyone they wanted to find during the gathering had been in there. There were many rumors about this place, but few had actually seen it. Those who entered rarely came out unscathed. Now that she had the opportunity, she wanted to use it fully. Soon, Yinsha handed them jade pendants to protect them from the lawless tower, and the group ventured inside. However, shortly after entering, they saw a person slowly climbing up the stairs. Junior brother Jiang. Yinsha was quite surprised. It's been a while since you visited. Jiang Hao turned around and was surprised to see Baizhu. Still, he greeted her. I've been in cultivation. Baizhu felt apprehensive looking at the person before her. This person carried the heavenly fate misfortune pearl. Friend Jiang, it's been a while. Do you still remember me? She asked with a smile. Jiang Hao nodded but didn't say much. If he had known that she would be here, he wouldn't have left the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Now, he could only quietly follow along. Although Yinsha was surprised, she didn't ask further. The four of them arrived at the 5th floor together. Jiang Hao noticed that there were more people this time. There was Zhuang Yuzhen, Hai Luo, Nangong Yu, Wu Yang, and Yin Zichen as usual. Then, there was a new addition, Mi Ling Yu. Jiang Hao hadn't noticed that she was here. Apparently, many things had happened unnoticed. Chapter 767 Heavenly King Hai Luo's realization. The arrival of Mi Ling Yu surprised Jiang Hao. He was curious about how she came to be here. Logically, she wouldn't have been captured. However, if she had come here voluntarily, it would be strange. The Heavenly Note sect wouldn't object as long as they could earn some spirit stones. Everyone knew about the price of entry here, regression of cultivation. Falling back to the primordial spirit realm was inevitable. There were no cultivators beyond the primordial spirit realm on the 5th floor. B0XO. The price for being here was self-evident. It would impact one's cultivation greatly unless one were in the primordial spirit realm to begin with. However, normal primordial spirit realm cultivators couldn't maintain their cultivation on the 5th floor. Most of these people could maintain it by controlling their strength and resisting the influence of the lawless tower. Among them, Zhuang Yuzhen was exceptional. He managed to stay stable solely through his own means. Heavenly King Hai Luo knew how to take advantage of his situation, so the suppression of his cultivation wasn't very severe. Baizhu felt astonished looking at the 6 people. There were quite a few people on this floor. If it had been earlier, she would have certainly explored thoroughly. But now that Jiang Hao was here, it seemed unlikely. If she had known that the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl would be here where she was, she definitely wouldn't have visited. Although it made no difference whether the person was here or not when it erupted, it was still a consolation when one couldn't see the pearl in front of them. She felt strange. If this person somehow was emotionally unstable, they would all die. But why would the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl be given to this person for safekeeping? It was perplexing. However, it wasn't worth investigating further. Provoking this person wouldn't be good for anyone present. This person might not be able to break the seal anyway. But what if he could? Baizhu sighed. It was best to finish what they came for and leave quietly. It wasn't good to stay here for long. She looked at the 6 people and tried to guess which one was Yin Zichen. The sudden arrival of so many people piqued the curiosity of the 6 captives. There hadn't been many visiting the tower the entire year. Today, so many had come at once. Jiang Hao remained in the back and didn't do anything much. He knew that these 2 people had come to release someone, and it seemed Yin Zichen had voluntarily given up his sword heart. Otherwise, The lawless tower wouldn't release anyone. Otherwise, they would have to face the Mountain Seasword sect. They definitely wouldn't provoke them. Yin Sha looked toward the fifth prison cell. She had a feeling that he was about to be released. Indeed, she was right. He returned the sword heart, so he still had a chance to escape in the future. Baizhu and Xiao Yi both looked at him. Baizhu couldn't recognize the person. She turned to Xiao Yi. "Auntie Xiao, take a look. Is this the person?" "Probably," Xiao Yi said with some difficulty. "I was still young back then, so I don't remember him very clearly." Baizhu looked helpless. She then approached the cell with Xiao Yi. "Senior, I have a question for you. If your answer satisfies me, I'll release you from here. If not, I won't," Baizhu said. "Go on." Yin Zichen nodded. He felt that the young girl in front of him was quite unusual. "Do you recognize this person?" Baizhu pushed Xiao Yi forward. The latter felt a bit embarrassed. Yin Zichen looked at her for a long time before shaking his head. "I'm sorry. I don't recognize you." Xiao Yi was filled with anticipation in the beginning, but now, she looked deflated. "I worked at the library of the Heavenly Spirit Tribe back then," Xiao Yi said. "The library? Outside the Heavenly Spirit Tribe?" Yin Zichen frowned. "The little girl who wanted to leave. That's me." Xiao Yi immediately nodded. "Sorry, I still don't remember your name." Yin Zichen shook his head. "It's all right. I understand," Xiao Yi said. "All right. Come with us," Baizhu said. Since they hadn't made a mistake, everything was all right. "You're not considering staying here longer?" Lingyu asked. Yin Zichen was speechless. What kind of situation would make someone consider staying in a place like this? Jiang Hao stood at the side and didn't pay much attention to these people. If Yin Zichen left, it was good. There were too many people here. At some point, the lawless tower had begun housing so many people. Initially, there was only Zhuang Yuzhen. Then, the Heavenly King arrived. The number of people should have decreased, but Heavenly King Hai Luo broke everyone's expectations by voluntarily ending up in the tower once more. Lingyu had also come to stay here voluntarily. She probably wanted to escape the control of the Great Thousand God sect. It was uncertain if she could detect the core of the mental control technique in this place. "Come with me," Yin Sha said as she escorted Yin Zichen, Xiao Yi, and Baizhu out. Jiang Hao watched them leave the fifth floor. Yin Zichen hadn't looked at him at all when all this happened. He probably didn't want to attract any unnecessary attention. Once they left, Jiang Hao finally breathed a sigh of relief. Baizhu was too dangerous. Chapter 768, Gift from Feng Hua. Jiang Hao didn't understand Heavenly King Hai Luo's emotions. He also couldn't guess what kind of changes these emotions could bring about. But he knew that having too many feelings would entangle a person. That was not what he hoped for. He tried to avoid people as much as possible and not get involved in too many relationships. B0XO. It was both for his defense and to protect others. He could provoke many people if he lived like that. The closer the relationship, the easier it was to attract attention. At that time, his limit would be tested. He didn't want such a thing to happen. No matter what he chose, it wouldn't be a good thing. Perhaps Heavenly King Hai Luo would benefit from his emotions, but how many people in this world were lucky enough to have that? When Jiang Hao left the lawless tower, he saw senior sister Yin Sha on the way. He asked her about Lingyu. "Ha!" She said she came for refuge. She also promised that she would help us with some forging tasks and teach some disciples. If they truly succeed in learning, then there's a chance the sect will reopen the forging branch. Elder Baizhi would naturally agree to such a good thing. That was what Jiang Hao heard. Unexpectedly, Lingyu didn't spend a single penny. However, her value far exceeded that of spirit stones. No one would refuse such a person. Both sides got what they needed. It was Hai Ming. This surprised Jiang Hao a bit. He hadn't visited for a long time. Previously, because of the matter with the fish people, he had come to find him to unearth some clues. Later, when the ancestral dragon heart had appeared, he hadn't visited. Why was he here suddenly? Senior Haiming. Jiang Hao bowed in greeting. Been such a long time. Haiming smiled. I assume you have been engaged in far more important matters of the sect, Senior, said Jiang Hao. Shall we go inside and talk? Haiming gestured toward Jiang Hao's courtyard. Jiang Hao was somewhat concerned, but he nodded. Please, do come in. If Haiming was himself, there would be no problem. But Jiang Hao knew that he was one of the avatars of Feng Hua. Whatever Haiming saw, Feng Hua would get wind of it. The sudden visit might be because they discovered something. Jiang Hao couldn't be certain what it was, but it probably wasn't related to smiling Sansheng. Most likely, it was about the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Feng Hua was not easy to deal with. He had known that from the beginning. So, after giving her some gifts, he didn't bother with her. Provoking someone frequently always brought trouble. Haiming looked around the courtyard and exclaimed, "This place is really nice. I was lucky to find a good location, that's all," said Jiang Hao modestly. Unfortunately, I'm not from the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Otherwise, I'd definitely build a house next to yours. Haiming chuckled. At this, Jiang Hao frowned. What did he mean? Their interaction had always been friendly and normal before. But today, it seemed as though there was an underlying threat in his words. It didn't sound like something a senior would say. How could he bring up building a house next to someone so casually? It would obviously arouse suspicion. The previous Haiming definitely wasn't like this. Jiang Hao looked at the person before but didn't sense anything unusual. He could only smile. If that were the case, I would truly be honored to have you as a neighbor. Haiming sat down. Do you have any tea? Yes. Jiang Hao nodded and brewed some ordinary tea leaves. I heard you frequently encounter opportunities whenever you go out. Haiming sipped his tea. Jiang Hao lowered his head and said, occasionally, I do encounter some opportunities. Haiming smiled meaningfully and said, could someone be secretly helping you? Jiang Hao looked at him and said, Senior, you must be joking. Who would ever help me? Ha ha ha, Haiming laughed. I'm just kidding. By the way, do you want a gift from me? Jiang Hao felt like he had already had this conversation before, as smiling Sansheng. Senior, you want to give me a gift? He asked in polite puzzlement. If he had known Haiming would come for a visit, he would have saved the appraisal ability instead of using it at the Lawless Tower. Yes. Do you want to guess what it is? Haiming smiled. Jiang Hao lowered his head. Is it something you need me to do, Senior? Not really. I just want to see your surprise when you receive the gift. Haiming smiled. Jiang Hao looked at him and sensed that he was up to no good. Thank you very much, Senior, but I still hope you would let me do something in return for you. Let me give you the gift first. Haiming took out a letter and handed it to Jiang Hao. Open and take a look. Jiang Hao slowly opened the envelope and read the words written there. Please say hello to smiling Sansheng for me. Jiang Hao's face didn't change, but a storm surged in his heart. What did this mean? Did Haiming think he had smiling Sansheng backing him, or did he believe he was smiling Sansheng? Jiang Hao panicked. He didn't know how Feng Hua had noticed it and linked smiling Sansheng to him. Do you like the gift? Haiming asked. Jiang Hao shook his head but didn't speak. Feng Hua might just be speculating. However, he had already attracted her attention, which was somewhat unexpected. I heard you have a younger sister. Haiming placed his teacup down. Seems like she loves food. I gave her a box of pastries. She smiled and thanked me. She's truly adorable, don't you think? What do you mean, Senior? Jiang Hao asked. Nothing. I just wanted to give something to someone, but they refused. So, I brought you something instead. Haiming chuckled and stood up. I won't stay long. I'll come again for a discussion with you, junior brother. Jiang Hao watched him walk away. As he left the courtyard, Haiming turned back. Young friend, you should take care of your sister, or one day she might disappear. Then, it'll be your fault for not looking after her properly. After that, Haiming rode his sword and left. Jiang Hao watched him leave without saying a word. He was silent as he watched Haiming speed away. Then, he looked around the courtyard. He looked at the peach tree and sighed heavily. Jiang Hao had intended to set aside the matter with Feng Hua for a while. But he hadn't expected the other party to come knocking on his door with ill intentions. Did she really find it out, or was she only guessing? It was quite challenging to find out anything about Smiling San Sheng unless someone at the gathering had learned about it and leaked the information. Only then would it be possible for someone to come looking for him. However, everyone at the gathering knew about the heavenly fate misfortune pearl on him, so no one could have revealed such important information. Once the pearl erupted, no one could escape. Therefore, it wouldn't have been anyone from the gathering. Jiang Hao sighed. He was unable to find a reason. The situation had somewhat gotten out of control, and Feng Hua's main body couldn't be found yet. She could take action against him at any time while hiding in the shadows. In an instant, she returned to the darkness while Jiang Hao remained exposed to the light. Chapter 769, The Battle of the Three Kingdoms. The next day, Jiang Hao left the Spirit Herb Garden and headed to the cafeteria. Most people there were at or below the Foundation establishment realm, and it was where ordinary individuals went to eat. Of course, their dining areas wouldn't be placed together. It was a risky affair for ordinary non-cultivators to mingle there. Those at the lifeblood refinement realm level and above seldom ate there. They rarely visited the cafeteria, except for Xiao Li B0XO. She had visited the cafeteria more frequently than anyone else in the past years. Unlike others, she had to pay spirit stones for her meals. Presently, it was 50 spirit stones per month. Most of the time, it was Jiang Hao who paid for her. Xiao Li had spirit stones of her own, but she spent them on other snacks, which meant she was often broke. As soon as Jiang Hao entered the cafeteria, he saw Xiao Li sitting in her usual spot. She was bouncing on her toes and waiting for her food to arrive. Her face was full of anticipation and joy. Senior brother Jiang. She spotted Jiang Hao and waved to him. Are you planning to treat me to a meal? Jiang Hao walked over and sat down. The spirit beast hopped onto the table and expected food to be served. Xiao Li's expectant face became conflicted. Finally, she nodded hesitantly. Jiang Hao looked at her and gestured for her to bring out the 9 nether. The 9 nether, which was in a fairly joyful state, instantly slumped as if in despair when it reached Jiang Hao's hands. It seemed desolate. Jiang Hao observed that even in this state, it couldn't influence the outside world. Even if he wanted it to help Xiao Li, it was powerless to do so unless released from its seal. Releasing it would be easy, but sealing it would be much more difficult. He couldn't guard Xiao Li against Feng Hua's threat, but he knew that Xiao Li herself was strong. With the dragon pearl on her, it would require formidable cultivation to harm her. He just wasn't sure what cultivation realm could resist the dragon pearl's power. Let me hold on to this for now, Jiang Hao said. If someone targeted Xiao Li, having the 9 nether on her would pose a danger. If it was unsealed, it would worsen the situation. A toothless tiger could still strike and kill. Oh, Xiao Li didn't seem to mind. Her food had arrived. It was a huge roast. Before eating, she cut a small piece for Jiang Hao. Senior brother, you first, she said. Jiang Hao took it and started eating. Then, he watched Xiao Li eat her food heartily. For a moment, he recalled the past. Xiao Li had come to the Heavenly Note sect solely for a meal back then. After arriving in the sect, she showed no interest in cultivating but toiled tirelessly every day for food. She was often chased by people to make her pay attention to her studies. At that time, she used to hide in the woods. Many years had passed without much change in her way of life. She didn't like cultivating. She only loved food. Perhaps one day, while eating, she would suddenly realize who she really was. Jiang Hao finished his food. He watched Xiao Li finish her meal too. Finally, Xiao Li took a few pieces of dessert and put them away secretly. When Jiang Hao asked her why she didn't eat them, Xiao Li told him that she'd eat them later at home so that others would know that she wasn't such a glutton. My mother taught me that it's not easy to be a joke to others, Xiao Li said. Jiang Hao didn't ask anything further. He got up and left. The spirit beast didn't follow but stayed beside Xiao Li. They might need to find Chu Chuan and the others. Back at his residence, Jiang Hao didn't dwell on it much. Rushing was useless in resolving Feng Hua's threat. He still had time. The best way was to get stronger quickly and then try and find the other party. After that, he could persuade her to let go of her grudge against him. 1 month later, in early June, the list of people selected for the Corpse Realm was released. Apart from Jiang Hao, there was one more person from the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised to see Xiao Li's name there. Is Master trying to push Xiao Li to do better? Xiao Li's talent was evident to everyone, and they all knew that she'd progress rapidly if she put in a little effort. But she just refused to take cultivation seriously. Whenever the Cliff Master tried to teach her, she would fall asleep. That was also why nobody paid too much attention to Xiao Li. To them, someone unwilling to cultivate was just a waste of talent. Such a person wasn't worth any attention. They wouldn't affect others. Typically, those who entered the Corpse Realm were individuals on the verge of a breakthrough, so assigning a slot to Xiao Li might be exactly something that she needed. Once inside, if one didn't become stronger by cultivation, they would be in immense danger. I wonder if Feng Hua can reach into the Corpse Realm. Jiang Hao didn't think much about it. It was uncertain whether Xiao Li could enter. Anybody who entered the realm had to learn about formations. Could Xiao Li learn them? It turned out that she could. The next day, Jiang Hao was summoned by his master and given a task. He was supposed to teach Xiao Li about formations. Jiang Hao nodded. After that, he began teaching Xiao Li. Initially, Xiao Li refused to learn. Her mind was blank. She just wanted to sleep. Jiang Hao withheld her meals. He told her she could only eat after she finished learning the formations. Senior brother Jiang, I'm hungry, Xiao Li said as she held her grumbling stomach. She sat under the immortal peach tree and looked forlorn. Jiang Hao looked at her calmly. You can eat after we're done with this. Xiao Li stared at Jiang Hao strangely. She felt a sense of déjà vu. There was a woman's figure behind her senior brother. The woman looked at her as if saying, you can't eat until you finish learning. No food for you if you don't learn this. Suddenly, it felt as if the woman was about to raise her hand and hit her. The fearless Xiao Li shuddered. Then, she picked up the book and said earnestly, Senior brother Jiang, I'll learn this fast. Jiang Hao was speechless. 3 days later, Xiao Li completed her training. Her talent in formations was unusually high. Jiang Hao was somewhat envious for a moment, as he didn't possess such talent. Many people in this world had unique talents. The feeling of being inferior often lingered in him. Jiang Hao realized that except for some talent in runic arts, his talents in other areas were quite average. In September, Jiang Hao had saved up 14,000 spirit stones. He thought he could save up to 20,000, but that wasn't very likely now. The Corpse Realm flower was about to bloom. In 7 days, he would enter the Corpse Realm. This time was different from the last. The Heavenly Note sect had experience, so everything went smoothly. The Heavenly Gate sect's members didn't need instructions, either. They already knew what to do. 7 days later, Jiang Hao, Xiao Li, Zhuge Zheng, and Yin Xuanyi arrived together at the front of the Corpse Realm flower. Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised. They all knew each other. Moreover, Zhuge Zheng was entering for the second time. The spirit beast wasn't here. It was tending to the spirit herbs and the flower in Jiang Hao's courtyard. However, just before they entered, Jiang Hao encountered Feng Hua again. Hai Ming told him that his second gift was in the Corpse Realm and hoped he liked it. Jiang Hao nodded politely and expressed his thanks. It caught him off guard. He didn't expect Feng Hua's influence to extend into the Corpse Realm. He didn't know from where Feng Hua had entered the Corpse Realm. Was it from the northern region, the southern region, or the western region? In the south, there was only the Heavenly Note sect. If it was here, the only targets would be the Heavenly Gate sect and Divine Corpse sect. Provoking the Heavenly Note sect directly was dangerous, even more so when the Mountain Seasword sect was involved. However, it was uncertain what this gift would entail. Chapter 770, arriving at Heavenly Steely Mountain right away, Hai Ming, one of the avatars of the Great Thousand God sect's Feng Hua. He is at the early stage of the return to Void Realm. He infiltrated the Heavenly Note sect to investigate the reason for Dan Qing's death. After being provoked by Smiling San Sheng, he abandoned his investigation and started tracing the whereabouts of Smiling San Sheng. However, he found nothing. After learning about your rapid progress in cultivation, he became suspicious of you. When he learned that the heavenly fragrance Dao flower was with you, he became even more wary. However, there is no evidence to show your connection with Smiling San Sheng. So, he used a letter to deceive you. He thinks that Smiling San Sheng values you, and he intends to use that against you. He wants Smiling San Sheng to feel pain. Jiang Hao stood in front of the human Yuan formation and sighed. Hai Ming didn't have any evidence. He was simply acting on some speculations. He wondered if he had given away anything from his reaction at that time. B0XO. Regardless, Hai Ming was convinced that Jiang Hao was connected to Smiling San Sheng. Once the seed of suspicion was planted, Feng Hua would undoubtedly take him as a target for revenge. Besides, there were no other suspicious individuals. Jiang Hao sighed warily. He hadn't expected that people would act on mere speculation. Feng Hua was angry. For an angry person, logic and evidence didn't matter. As soon as he met Hai Ming, he activated his daily appraisal. Unfortunately, the information he received wasn't very detailed. Maybe Feng Hua was afraid of being discovered by Jiang Hao and was deliberately withholding information from Hai Ming. Hai Ming knew a little about the plan but not so much of its execution. It was similar to when he had asked Gui to deliver a letter. At that time, Gui didn't know what she was being used for. The avatars of the Great Thousand God Sect's members are indeed formidable. Jiang Hao couldn't help but admire them. The fastest way of advancement was probably the Divine Corpse sect's corpse dissolution technique. The other techniques were slightly inferior. The freeform technique and the myriad body technique were different. Senior brother Jiang, I'm going to the Foundation establishment area, Xiao Li said. Jiang Hao glanced at her storage treasure. There must be a lot of things packed inside. She couldn't do as she pleased. The Cliff Master controlled it. If she had too much food, she might hide somewhere and just eat for a year before leaving the realm. Go ahead. Jiang Hao nodded. After that, he watched Xiao Li jump in. Her steps did not follow the original path but changed. She just continued as per her understanding. Could it be that this formation was something she was seeing for the first time? Jiang Hao was surprised. While he was still being cautious, Xiao Li had already soared in her knowledge. Even Zhuge Zheng was stunned. What kind of creature was this? He could clearly see each of her steps but couldn't comprehend any of them. Yet, there seemed to be no problem at all. Where do you plan to go, friend Jiang? He asked Jiang Hao. Since both of them were in the Golden Core realm, they could go to the same place. What about you? Jiang Hao asked. The stargazing stone forest, Zhuge Zheng said. I'm going to visit the Moon Lake, Jiang Hao said. He was going to the 1,000 feet mountain. The Moon Lake was nearby. Zhuge Zheng nodded and didn't say anything further. He hesitated for a moment and recalled their previous encounter in the corpse realm. Friend Jiang, are you planning to do the same as last time? Jiang Hao looked at him and nodded slightly. Do you know about the 1,000 feet mountain? He asked. The Soul Ascension area? There is a barren place there. Perhaps it could be safe to do what we did last time. Jiang Hao hadn't expected that. Both of them froze. There was another person nearby, who looked a bit proud. She had the highest cultivation among the four of them. She was at the peak of the primordial spirit realm. It was highly likely that she was going inside to seek opportunities. However, Jiang Hao felt that she might have some difficulties because her cultivation was somewhat unrefined. Some people spent their entire lives trying and being unable to reach the primordial spirit realm. While she had reached it easily, it seemed she didn't cherish her talent and resources. She wasted them. Jiang Hao didn't dare to be careless as he entered the formation. He could only barely manage to hold on. His cultivation had reached its limit. It was hard to say what he might encounter inside. It was different from last time. This time, he didn't feel the summoning. It seemed that he wouldn't be summoned again by the heavenly steely mountain. Jiang Hao felt his body begin to descend. Soon, he saw a huge lake. It was the Moon Lake. It was said that there were many opportunities in the lake, but it depended on whether one could reach them. At that moment, Jiang Hao suddenly felt his vision blur. Faintly, he heard the sound of ocean waves. He felt a kind of tearing sensation in his body. Startled, he took out the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. In an instant, the pulling sensation disappeared. The sound of ocean waves gradually dissipated, and Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. As expected, he had already known that this would happen. The sealed Earth Extreme Silent Pearl could suppress the body. The pearl wasn't all-powerful, but the effect was certain. It was hard to know how effective it would be. After a while, Jiang Hao landed at the edge of the lake. Some other people arrived with him. Most of them were at the peak of the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao felt helpless. His displayed cultivation was the lowest among them. He hoped that they wouldn't try anything bad. At that moment, the surface of the lake surged as if something was disturbing the water. He turned to look and saw that a mountain appeared and disappeared in the distance. The heavenly steely mountain? Jiang Hao was surprised. He was indeed lucky today. However, it would still take another month for the heavenly steely mountain to fully appear. He decided to go to the 1,000-feet mountain first to find the location of the mine and then come back here. He didn't need to rush to the heavenly steely mountain. The last few days would be enough to explore it. He decided to leave now when there weren't many people present. Jiang Hao hopped on his sword and left. Many people looked at him but paid him no mind. While passing through the forest, he changed his appearance. He took on the appearance of a young farmer. He intended to head to the 1,000-feet mountain like this, but unexpectedly, he was intercepted. 3 people at the peak of the Golden Core realm appeared in front of him. His displayed cultivation was still at the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. "Is there something you need, seniors?" asked Jiang Hao. There were 2 men and 1 woman. 2 of them had strong auras, and 1 was slightly weaker. They all seemed to be powerful individuals. This path was originally filled with many monsters. We cleared the monsters so you could pass easily. But we suffered heavy losses. As a member of a prestigious, righteous sect, shouldn't you offer some compensation? Said the man in the middle with a smile. Jiang Hao lowered his head. He didn't want anything to do with them. Just as he was about to leave, a net fell from above. It fell on the 3 Golden Core realm cultivators. Immediately after, someone in the peak of the Golden Core realm flew up, grabbed Jiang Hao, and pulled him away. "Follow me." Chapter 771. The attitude of a higher cultivation realm cultivator. Jiang Hao was pulled away by someone. It was quite unexpected. Ahead of him was a man who looked about 30 years old. He looked quite composed, but his cultivation wasn't very solid. He was at the peak of the Golden Core realm, but his cultivation wasn't as refined as the people from before. To break through, it would require significant opportunities. B0XO. However, why would this person suddenly intervene and help him? At first, he thought this person was in cahoots with the others, so he hadn't paid him much attention. He had never expected this person to do the opposite and help him. At this moment, the 3 Golden Core realm individuals broke through the net and chased after them. The middle-aged man seemed to have anticipated this early on. He pulled Jiang Hao into the woods and then hid in the shadows. There were many formations in the woods. All were at the level of the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao lowered his head to look. Although these formations were sturdy, his understanding might not be as good as that of an expert in formations. Breaking through them was quite simple. As the 3 people entered the formations, they felt disoriented and ran away. "You are asking for death." Watching the 3 leave, Jiang Hao knew they had fallen into an illusion. Only then did the man beside him relax. Jiang Hao politely said, "Thank you for helping me, friend." "It's nothing. These 3 are from a demonic sect. They behave recklessly. They like to unite and target individuals who are alone." The man, with a bit of stubble, looked quite reliable. Jiang Hao nodded. He considered inviting this man to go to the mines with him. I am a disciple of the Western Waters and Mountains Valley sect. My name is Dole, said the man. Smiling San Sheng, Jiang Hao smiled. He never intended to use his real name because he could only attract Feng Hua's attention in this way. The other party might also go after Xiao Li, but Xiao Li's dragon pearl should be able to negate the threat from someone at the return to Void Realm. She was a true dragon, after all. She was safer here because of restrictions on cultivation. Your name is quite unique. Are you always smiling? Dole asked jokingly. Jiang Hao shook his head. It means smiling through life. I see. The man looked at him apologetically. Where do you plan to go, friend? I want to find a mine. Do you want to join me? Jiang Hao looked at him. He didn't understand why this person had decided to save him, but since he was only going to find a cave to mine, there was no harm in inviting him along. As long as he could help find a market to sell the ores, everything would be fine. However, the Soul Ascension area was dangerous. The only possibility was to take the route through Moon Lake to reach the 1,000-feet mountain. The area was remote and not very accessible. Mining. Dole was surprised. Are you here to earn spirit stones? Jiang Hao nodded. Understood. It's a little dangerous for you since you don't hide your cultivation, said Dole. I can help you sell the ores that you mine. That'd be great. I'll mine for ores. You sell them. We split the profits 50-50, said Jiang Hao. No. You take 60%. I'll take 40%. I heard that mining is very dangerous, so it's only reasonable for you to have more, said Dole politely. Jiang Hao was surprised. Mining for ores wasn't very difficult for him, so he agreed. Then, let's go, Jiang Hao said. Immediately, the two flew off on their swords. On the way, Jiang Hao asked, Why did you help me? I just saw you in trouble, so I decided to help, said Dole. Jiang Hao nodded. The next day, he appraised Dole. He wanted to see who he actually was and what was his goal here. He was surprised. Dole, disciple of the Western Waters and Mountains Valley sect. He is at the peak of the Golden Core realm. He has only mediocre talent and is comparatively weaker when compared to others in the same realm. He likes to help out those lower in the cultivation realm. He enjoys the feeling of being relied upon and worries about being useless. He is extremely sensitive. Jiang Hao had thought this person wanted to use him for some gain. He never thought the person actually enjoyed helping those weaker than him. He wasn't very strong but wanted others to perceive him as such. It was extremely important for him to feel reliable and useful. It's no wonder he suggested a 60-40 split to show how generous he was. Jiang Hao glanced at him. He looked to be about 30 and seemed indifferent to things around him, yet his eyes were vigilant. It must be tough to maintain such calmness after what happened. Jiang Hao wanted to increase his cultivation to the Soul Ascension realm. After all, in the Soul Ascension area, he would be able to mine in peace if his cultivation was high enough. Otherwise, why transform into his current appearance? But after hesitating for a moment, he gave up on the idea. Well then, I'll have to rely on you, friend Dole, said Jiang Hao. Okay. Dole smiled. They weren't slow, but it would still take some time to reach the 1,000-feet mountain. Jiang Hao sped up to push Dole to be a bit faster, too. 7 days later, they arrived at the border of Moon Lake and could see a barren mountain ahead. This is the 1,000-feet mountain? Dole was shocked. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. It is said that there are no cultivators nearby, so there's no need to worry too much. And we're near the Moon Lake. We can sell the ores here. That makes sense. Dole nodded. Jiang Hao glanced at him and could tell from his face that Dole was worried, but he tried hard to appear calm. Dry trees stood tall, and spiritual energy was scarce. There were no signs of demonic beasts. Apart from safety, there seemed to be nothing else here. Jiang Hao carefully sensed his surroundings to try to understand the place. If it were just a regular barren land, it would be fine, but he feared there might be a special reason behind it. It could attract trouble. After a while, he discovered that something beneath the mountain seemed to emit an aura that dispersed some spiritual energy. It wasn't just a lack of spiritual energy here. The spiritual energy in one's body would also gradually dissipate. This seems like a good place. Since this place was so barren, no one would come here at all. But he wasn't sure about what lay below. If someone knew about it, they might come looking for the place. As he descended from the sky, Dole asked, "Friend, did you find anything? If you want to choose this place, I can set up formations that will allow you to mine in peace." Jiang Hao was surprised. "I have a bit of talent for formations." Dole chuckled. Jiang Hao nodded. "Then, I'll have to rely on you, friend." After that, Jiang Hao arrived in front of a mountain and used his cultivation to crack open an entrance. As soon as he saw the ores, he started digging. For now, everything was going smoothly. In the blood-tide forest, Xiao Li tiptoed around and examined her surroundings. Her face was covered in dust. She looked distressed. The trees and flowers here were dangerous. They could steal people's belongings. It even stole her food. She was furious. She uprooted the flowers and trees in the area as revenge. Now, she had to search around for things to eat. This is so infuriating. If I see those trees and flowers again, I'll uproot them all. Xiao Li grumbled in frustration. Chapter 772, Beginning to Rule the Foundation Establishment Area. 1. Xiao Li looked around and realized she was lost. I wonder where senior brother Jiang is. Wherever her senior was, there was usually food. After meeting senior brother Jiang, she had never gone hungry. As she was about to continue, a voice suddenly said from behind, "Stop." Xiao Li turned around in confusion and found 3 people standing behind her. She hadn't noticed them before. B0XO. 2 of them were women, while the third one was a man who somewhat resembled Chu Chuan. "Are you calling me?" Xiao Li pointed at herself. "Don't go any further," said the woman in white. The 3 of them were guarding a monster. The creature was about to emerge from the man-eating forest. They couldn't let anyone in to avoid startling the monster. Otherwise, why would they care if someone in the middle stage of Foundation Establishment realm wanted to rush into their death? All 3 were at the peak of Foundation Establishment realm. As long as they acted swiftly, they should be able to deal with this middle-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivator quietly. However, they felt the person in front of them seemed a bit naive. She looked like a child. But they didn't dare to be careless because they didn't know if she was only pretending to be like that. The price of a slight misjudgment could be fatal. They couldn't afford to have any accidents. "Why can't I go?" Xiao Li took 2 steps back. She was very receptive to advice. There must be a reason why she wasn't allowed to go in. She just wanted a place to hide and find some food. Seeing the young girl step back, the woman's tone softened a bit as she said, "There is a man-eating forest ahead. You'll get eaten if you go in." "Eaten?" Xiao Li thought for a moment and asked, "Are those the same trees and flowers that steal food?" "Yes. It's extremely difficult to deal with." "Hey, what are you doing? Stop." Before the woman could finish her words, she saw Xiao Li rushing in. The 3 people were shocked. They couldn't stop her in time. She was remarkably fast, which meant she was prepared for this. "Damn. We got played," said the woman in white. She thought the young girl was actually a child. She never expected the child to deceive her. But why did she rush in? "Isn't she putting herself in danger?" the young man asked. "Maybe she thought we meant her harm," said the short-haired woman. They felt this was likely, but they couldn't let the person act recklessly. They had to go and check on her. Waiting here would be useless. The 3 immediately followed Xiao Li inside. Soon, they heard a rumble. It was hopeless now. "This is infuriating. A child has ruined our efforts," said the woman in white angrily. They thought that she wouldn't cause much damage since she was a child. But she had ruined everything. Boom, boom, boom. The sounds followed in succession. It felt as though the entire forest was trembling. They were shocked. Something was strange about this situation. As they got closer, they were even more shocked. They found it hard to believe. The child who should have been fragile seemed like a different person in here. She walked among the trees and flowers. She looked very angry, and her fists constantly swung at the trees and plants. Wherever she went, plants withered, and flowers wilted. She was extremely fast, and she emitted a blue light. When she stopped, the trees and flowers behind her exploded. Petals and leaves fell like ashes. Blood scattered across the ground. At that moment, the young girl turned to look at them. The three people were shaken to their core. "Do you have something to say?" Her calm yet puzzled voice made the three of them instinctively take a few steps back. They were worried that she might rush toward them. After a little while, whole man-eating trees were uprooted. The three people were now afraid. Rumble. Xiao Li's stomach grumbled, and she pouted. "I'm hungry. I have some food here," said the woman in white as she took out some pastries. These were prepared at home and were expensive and delicious. At the Golden Core area, Yin Xueni was intercepted by someone in black. "Who are you?" "Someone who wants to help you vent your anger." The voice of the stranger was hoarse, but it was undoubtedly a woman. Yin Xueni frowned. Her hand gripped her sword. "You want to help me? Are you searching for someone?" "Perhaps a Golden Core realm cultivator," said the woman in black. "What if I am?" Yin Xueni asked. "Is this person named Jiang? He humiliated you when he was just at the Golden Core realm." "How dare he humiliate you?" asked the woman in black. "What are you trying to say?" Yin Xueni asked coldly. "I just wanted to tell you, He's not in this area. He's at Moon Lake." The woman in black robes smiled. "Of course, he might have already gone somewhere else, but I can quickly track his location. Do you want my help? Are you trying to tell me how to do things?" Yin Xueni was angry. "Of course not. I'm just a cultivator in the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm. I'm not your match. How could someone like me dare to tell you what to do?" "I'm just being opportunistic," said the woman in black. Yin Xueni relaxed slightly. She then turned and left. The woman in black robes just watched quietly. After the person left, she chuckled. Such a person is truly likable. Killing her would be such a pity. What's there to pity? At that moment, a man emerged from behind a tree. "She is just a disgrace to the sect. Let her go and kill someone, and then the Heavenly Note sect won't spare her." The woman in black smiled. "Should we follow along? In case she doesn't succeed, it would be nice to lend her a hand." Chapter 773, Beginning to Rule the Foundation Establishment Area, 2, No Need. Just present the evidence to the Heavenly Note sect when the time comes. It's said that the list of names is with the Law Enforcement Hall. If someone gets killed, they might take action. This way, nothing will implicate us. It's a pity that the other two haven't come in. Otherwise, we could have dealt with them all together, said the man with a sigh. The woman in black didn't mind. I heard that the Heavenly Note sect members are heading to the Foundation Establishment Area. Should we send someone there? The man was puzzled. The woman in black smiled. A fallen immortal clan member has entered, and it seems the fallen immortal clan is looking for someone. Perhaps we could ask them. Do we need spirit stones? It depends on you, senior. Your cultivation is very high, after all. After that, the two headed off into the distance. Jiang Hao dug for a long time and finally unearthed an ore. A blue bubble dropped. Cultivation +1. Is the probability of achieving bubbles this high here? Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised. He then took out his pickaxe and began mining. Sounds echoed from inside. White bubbles and green bubbles appeared one after another. An hour later, Jiang Hao discovered that the possibility of finding blue bubbles wasn't that high. Moreover, this ore, upon closer inspection, was blood red. It might not be that significant. It was hard to say how many spirit stones it could fetch. However, earning spirit stones wasn't a priority, so it didn't matter how much they got paid for the ore. As he was about to continue, his vision blurred, and he heard the waves again. He didn't dare be careless and summoned the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl immediately. After that, everything disappeared. No, mining like this is very dangerous. He lost himself while digging for ores. If he were pulled into the sea, it would be dangerous. After some hesitation, He decided to use the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl as a nightlight. He also took out the 9 nether just in case. "Can you understand?" he asked hastily. The 9 nether nodded eagerly. The 9 nether seemed to have been influenced by Xiao Li. It behaved like a puppy. "Keep an eye on the surroundings. If there's any change, break the seal," he said. Upon hearing that, the 9 nether looked desperate. IR didn't dare move near the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. Attack the seal? It wasn't like it could break out. Jiang Hao left behind a wisp of purple aura, which made it even safer. Then, he notified Dole to get ready to set up formations. Dole nodded. "Leave it to me. I'll check the nearby area. It's better for you not to go out. If people from the Soul Ascension area discover you, it would be disastrous." Jiang Hao nodded in gratitude. He fell silent as he watched the person head toward Moon Lake. Finally, he turned and looked behind. "You've been watching us for a long time, haven't you? Although I wasn't hiding myself intentionally, I'm not someone that a golden core realm cultivator can sense," said a middle-aged man as he walked out from behind the withered tree. He had a lock of white hair on his forehead, a clean face, and a scholarly appearance. He was in the late stage of the Soul Ascension realm. Jiang Hao looked at him calmly. "Senior, why are you here? I wanted to see what you were up to. It's strange for a golden core realm cultivator to come here. I didn't expect you to be mining. Can you tell me what's in the mine?" the middle-aged man asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. "I don't know. I'm just here to mine and earn some spirit stones." "That's a shame. I'm also here to earn spirit stones, but I'm not planning to mine. How about handing over your storage treasure to me?" the middle-aged man asked. "Do you lack spirit stones, senior?" "I'm alright, but my expenses have been high lately, and I only have around 10,000 left." "That's quite a lot." Jiang Hao took a step forward. This closed the distance between him and the middle-aged man. The man's eyes narrowed, and he began to retreat. However, no matter how he withdrew, he couldn't widen the gap. At that moment, Jiang Hao's blade was already at the man's neck. He slashed. Blood splattered on the ground. Panic, fear, and disbelief flashed in the middle-aged man's face. He felt despair. This person wasn't a golden core realm cultivator. "Senior, please spare me." He knelt and bowed. Jiang Hao looked at him and frowned. He had kneeled too quickly. He didn't even pay attention to the wound on his neck. "How many spirit stones do you have?" Jiang Hao asked again. "In truth, I only have 15,000. Otherwise, I wouldn't think of robbing anyone, not even a golden core realm cultivator." Jiang Hao appraised him. Guan Zhongfei, disciple of the Divine Rotation sect. At the late stage of the Soul Ascension realm. Due to a shortage of spirit stones, he planned to rob people. He planned to rob you because he thought you were a golden core realm cultivator. He wants to use the spirit stones to buy the God Origin pill to advance in his cultivation realm. Jiang Hao found this person honest. "Give me the spirit stones." Jiang Hao extended his hand. Guan Zhongfei didn't say a word and handed over the spirit stones. There was a total of 15,325 spirit stones. Now, he had 20,000 left. Previously, he had over 10,000 and spent 10,000 to buy the red azure tea. "Can you suppress or conceal your cultivation?" Jiang Hao asked. "Yes, I can," Guan Zhongfei said as he clutched at his neck. "Then, I'll have to trouble you to suppress your cultivation to the middle stage of the golden core realm. After that, pretend to run into the person who just left and beg him to bring you here and share the work," said Jiang Hao as he put his blade away. "Is that difficult for you?" "Not difficult at all. I understand what you mean. I'll go and do it," Guan Zhongfei said. Jiang Hao nodded. After that, Guan Zhongfei quickly departed. In the evening, Dole returned with some spirit herbs and an injured man. "It was Guan Zhongfei. I rescued him on the way here. With his cultivation, he shouldn't cause us any trouble. Friend, I wanted to ask you if he can stay here with us. If not, I'll send him away," said Dole. Chapter 774, Beginning to Rule the Foundation Establishment Area, 3. All right, I'll follow your lead, friend Dole, said Jiang Hao with a nod. Thank you, Dole. Guan Zhongfei pretended to be grateful. Dole began planting spirit herbs, while Jiang Hao entered the mine to start digging. Guan Zhongfei sat in a corner and rested. He felt confused. However, he knew that he couldn't do anything but comply. Updated on B0x0vel. After surviving that encounter, he didn't want to risk anything. He was just a little puzzled why such a powerful cultivator pretended to be in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. Perhaps he wanted someone to help him with the tasks. Jiang Hao didn't waste any time and began mining inside the cave. He dug as much as he could in a day. Half a month later, Jiang Hao finally emerged from the mine. He realized something was off here. Mining at night was difficult, but during the day, it was easier. Moreover, the spiritual energy was continuously dissipating. If he wasn't inherently strong, mining would be extremely challenging. Even after half a month, his harvest wasn't insignificant. He had only gained around 8 blue bubbles. It was much better than from the flower back at his place, but still, advancing would take more than a year. Mining alone wasn't enough. He needed to go to the heavenly Steely Mountain. Senior brother Dole, you're really amazing. I've been studying this formation for a long time but couldn't figure it out, said Guan Zhongfei admiringly as he held something in his hand. It was something he had obtained a long time ago. He couldn't unlock it, even with improved cultivation. He worried that the contents might be damaged. Finally, his wish was fulfilled. There should be a hidden compartment somewhere, Dole said kindly. At that moment, Guan Zhongfei discovered that there was indeed a hidden compartment, and it held a letter. He was stunned. He opened the letter and read it aloud. After a while, he looked forlorn. Jiang Hao noticed a red flower symbol on the back of the envelope. Presumably, this letter was sent by a woman. Friend San Sheng, said Dole as he pointed to the spirit herbs he had planted, these are the spirit herbs found in the vicinity. They have some effect. They can be sold together with the ores later. He hesitated for a moment, then said, there might be a need for friend Guan's help in the future, so I'm thinking of giving him a share of the profit. I'll take 20% of the profit and give him 20% of my total share. Jiang Hao shook his head. No. I can take 40%, and you can have 30% each. Jiang Hao brought out a lot of ores. You can try selling these too. Dole was quite surprised when he looked at the ores. He had also mined before and knew it wasn't easy. Once the ores were stored away, Jiang Hao and the others set off for Heavenly Steely Mountain. In 7 days, the Heavenly Steely Mountain was expected to appear. It was supposed to be exactly 1 month later. In the blood-tide forest, a monster howled in agony in a corner. Some cultivators were hiding in the shadows. For the past month, this entire forest had been chaotic. What exactly happened? Have any of you tried to find out? Asked a woman as she hid behind a huge rock. There were 3 others beside her. The 4 of them had joined hands in seeking opportunities. In the beginning, everything was fine. Later, they sensed some disturbance in the forest. Some monsters were fleeing. The number of monsters was substantial, so it made them reluctant to face them head-on. There was also a rampant insect infestation. It seems that there's a decrease in man-eating flowers and trees, and it has caused an imbalance in the ecosystem, said a man. It's said that a cultivator with exceptional talent obtained some opportunity and is now ruling over the entire forest. Perhaps some Golden Core realm cultivators might come to resolve the issue. When that happens, the Foundation Establishment realm cultivator will be in trouble. Chapter 775. Life and death decided with just one punch. Xiao Li was huffing as she pulled out a man-eating tree. Finally, she let out a sigh of relief. However, the 3 people behind her were sweating profusely. They had seen everything by now. Wherever there were trees or flowers, they were destroyed. This child killed every tree she encountered, without exception. Updated on B0x0vel. When they asked her why, she told them these trees and flowers had stolen her food. Now, besides filling her stomach, she was intent on destroying these trees and flowers. An eye for an eye, The three of them didn't dare to offend her in the slightest and could only follow her. They even searched for food for her. Only then could they survive. Her strength was unbelievable regardless of her cultivation realm. This has caught too much attention. Some Golden Core realm cultivators might come here. There are rumors that this junior obtained a treasure that can even control the blood-tide forest. It doesn't matter whether it is true or not. Someone will definitely be here to check it out, said the young man, Zhong Fahua, in concern. The Golden Core realm cultivators here were either in the late stages or at the peak. The early-stage Golden Core realm cultivators were absent because they needed the others to advance and leave before they could step foot anywhere. I hope this junior can restrain herself. The blood-tide forest has been facing a lot of problems lately, said the woman in white, Bai Shuang, helplessly. They could only survive because they were doing everything to feed the young girl. They knew which monsters could be eaten and which couldn't. Moreover, if they looked around, they might find a way to bring the situation under control. However, Xiao Li only knew how to roast meat, and nothing else. Only after all the trees in the area were destroyed did Xiao Li finally relax and take out something to eat. Otherwise, she couldn't eat in peace. I wonder where senior brother Jiang is. I need to tell him that these trees and flowers are very dangerous. Xiao Li thought as she ate. At that moment, there was suddenly a thunderous attack from the distance. Boom! A powerful attack landed directly on Xiao Li and sent her flying. This sudden attack terrified the three people beside her. This wasn't the aura of a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. That meant a Golden Core realm cultivator had arrived. Moreover, the powerful attack hit Xiao Li directly. It was over. In an instant, the three knew that Xiao Li was in grave danger. Even if she wasn't dead, she was surely injured. Xiao Li rolled on the ground. After some time, she finally fell into a puddle. At that moment, the food in her hand also fell into the puddle and hit the mud. Xiao Li was covered in mud and was furious. She looked in the direction where the attack had come from. You wasted my food. I'm angry now. At that moment, three people arrived in the sky with their flying swords. They emitted a majestic aura. The overwhelming pressure of the peak of the Golden Core realm spread in all directions. She's not injured. In that case, the man in the lead looked at Xiao Li condescendingly. However, before he finished speaking, his vision was suddenly blocked by a figure. There was a blue light and a tiny fist emerged from within it. In the next moment, the fist suddenly enlarged. Boom! A punch was thrown. It tore the man's skin, incinerated his flesh, and broke his bones. The flames burned over him. With a single punch, the peak Golden Core realm cultivator was reduced to ashes. There was no trace of his bones either. The blue light didn't disappear. It continued to emanate the aura of a true dragon. Xiao Li was even more furious now that the person she attacked had disappeared. She turned to the other two. The sudden attack terrified the two Golden Core realm cultivators. However, before they could react, the fists had already appeared before them. Boom! Boom! After two successive punches, no one was left standing in the sky. There was no trace of anyone. With a thud, Xiao Li fell to the ground and looked around. She couldn't find the three people from before at all. Darn it, they escaped. She stomped her foot in frustration. The three people who were watching from behind were dumbfounded. This girl, it was unbelievable. But soon they were certain of one thing: Xiao Li didn't like it when food went to waste. The three people had made her food fall into the mud. That was why this disaster had happened. The man-eating forest seemed to have snatched her food away as well. In their eyes, Xiao Li was no longer an ordinary cultivator. She appeared to be an unpredictable little demon. Jiang Hao and the others flew their swords toward the Moon Lake. It was a loss not to visit Heavenly Steely Mountain. What do you know about Heavenly Steely Mountain? Dole asked suddenly. Jiang Hao shook his head. Guan Zhongfei said, Heavenly Steely Mountain is the gathering place for all the opportunities in the corpse realm. Any insights obtained elsewhere can also be obtained at Heavenly Steely Mountain. Even if the opportunities are not great, one can still gain some benefits. What kind of opportunities do you all want? Dole was curious. Jiang Hao thought for a moment. I just want to try my luck. Guan Zhongfei said, I want spirit stones or things that can be sold for spirit stones. How about you, senior brother Dole? I want cultivation techniques. My cultivation techniques are somewhat average. Dole smiled. Senior brother Dole, your cultivation realm is high. So, how can your technique be just average? Asked Guan Zhongfei in surprise. Jiang Hao could tell that Dole's cultivation techniques were rather average. Dole laughed. The technique is just average. There's nothing to it. He didn't elaborate on the matter. If you have any questions about cultivation, you can ask me. I might be able to help, Dole said. Guan Zhongfei thanked him and mentioned a difficult but quite common issue. Sure enough, Dole provided an answer. Jiang Hao glanced at Guan Zhongfei. He didn't pay much attention to it, since this person didn't mean any harm anyway. 7 days later, they arrived again at the shore of the Moon Lake. At that moment, Heavenly Steely Mountain stood tall in the center of the lake. Its enormous peaks pierced the clouds. It was magnificent. This was Jiang Hao's first time seeing Heavenly Steely Mountain from afar. Before, it had appeared directly in front of him. It is quite spectacular, Dole exclaimed. This is where opportunities are. It seems that many people are going up. At that moment, people were flying in all directions and heading toward Heavenly Steely Mountain. Jiang Hao and Guan Zhongfei followed Dole's lead but kept their swords low. They didn't dare to fly too high to avoid offending stronger individuals. Most of the people were no threat to Guan Zhongfei. It seems like there are many primordial spirit realm cultivators here, Dole said softly. Yeah, after all, the 1,000-feet mountain is nearby, Jiang Hao said. After a short while, they arrived at the foot of Heavenly Steely Mountain. Once they went up, they would be able to see the first Steely. Jiang Hao and the others went up together. The first Steely was accessible to everyone, but what came after would depend on their abilities. After a while, Jiang Hao and the others arrived in front of the first Steely. Like before, the Steely was inscribed with the words, Moon in the Well. This time, Jiang Hao didn't go to see the content or sense any special content of the Steely. He wanted to touch it and see if there was any dirt on it. Chapter 776, Bubbles falling non-stop. There were many people at the first stone Steely, but most of them merely observed without truly understanding it. Why do they keep staring? Guan Zhongfei asked. I've heard that opportunities are hard to come by. Heavenly Steely Mountain will only stay here for a month, and obtaining an opportunity within that time is already at the limit, Dole said. Guan Zhongfei nodded. Do you want to go up and take a look? The first stone Steely wasn't much. There was nothing much to glean from it. Updated on B0x0vel. It was common knowledge that the good stuff was at the top. Jiang Hao shook his head. You go up first. I'll stay here and take a look. Then, friend, be careful. We'll meet at the foot of the mountain after we're done, Dole said. Jiang Hao nodded. Guan Zhongfei relaxed and began climbing up. As they moved away, Jiang Hao thought about what to do. With so many people, it seemed odd for him to wipe the Steely clean. So, he activated the Heavenly Cauldron. He pulled everyone into it and then veiled their perceptions. However, when he attempted to wipe the Steely, he found that it was impossible. The stone Steely couldn't be brought into the cauldron. With a sigh, he put away the Heavenly Cauldron. He tampered with their perceptions with divine power so that they would only see illusions. There was no dirt. There was only some dirt at the bottom. When he wiped it, several bubbles spawned. None were blue or green. Jiang Hao wasn't too disappointed. It was better than nothing. The first Steely was seen and touched by all. It was only natural that it was clean. He was satisfied as long as he could get even a few bubbles. This increased the likelihood of something significant being up at the top. After wiping the Steely, he gained 10 white bubbles. Jiang Hao stepped toward the second stone Steely. The others didn't notice anything unusual. Most here were Golden Core Realm cultivators and were easily deceived. The situation might change later if he encountered a primordial spirit realm cultivator. The rest should be easy. Even if he was discovered, it wouldn't cause him any damage. But before making his move, he needed to observe the surroundings and ensure no hidden cultivators were around. He tried not to offend anyone, especially with stronger cultivators. It was always better not to act rashly. At the second stone stele, there were mostly golden core realm cultivators, but notably fewer than at the first. He activated his divine power again. He wiped the stele and gained only 8 white bubbles. Just because he got more this time didn't mean he got something better. Jiang Hao glanced at the peak of the mountain. There were 108 stone steles in total, 36 heavenly constellation spirits, and 72 earth seals. Among them, reaching the heavenly constellation spirits was extremely challenging, but the earth seals were relatively easier. So, the heavenly constellation spirits might yield good returns. I wonder if anyone will reach the highest point this time. Many aspired to reach the top, but only a few succeeded. He didn't know if there were any remarkable people this time. At the third stone stele, Dole had stayed behind. Jiang Hao didn't greet him but used divine power to deceive everyone and then wiped the stone stele. This time, there were 2 green bubbles. That's something, at least. Jiang Hao continued upward. By the 10th stone stele, he finally got a blue bubble. Cultivation +1, he glanced at his interface. It was currently July, and he hadn't accumulated many bubbles. Name, Jiang Hao, age, 36, cultivation level. Peak of the return to the Void Realm, cultivation method, Heavenly Sound 100 revolutions, Hongmeng Heart Sutra, divine ability, 9 revolutions death substitution, unique, daily appraisal clear and pure heart, reappearance of hidden spirit, divine might, revival of withered tree, heavenly cauldron, indestructible Vaja, lifeblood, 12-100, can be cultivated, cultivation, 9-100, cannot be cultivated, divine abilities, 1/3, cannot be obtained. Since it was only the 10th stele, there were still many people. However, the number of golden core realm cultivators started decreasing. Conflict rarely occurred on Heavenly Stele Mountain. Everyone was here to seek opportunities, not to fight. After that, Jiang Hao occasionally encountered blue bubbles. At the 30th stone stele, Jiang Hao didn't see Guan Zhongfei. He probably headed to the heavenly constellation spirits. Regardless, it didn't affect him. Jiang Hao arrived at the last earth seal, the 72nd stone stele. The last earth seal must be special. There weren't many people here. There were only about a dozen with a high cultivation realm. Even the weakest was in the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm. Jiang Hao's arrival didn't attract anyone's attention. By now, his cultivation had changed. He was no longer in the golden core realm but at the peak of the primordial spirit realm. If someone noticed him, they wouldn't cause trouble. Sky in the well. Jiang Hao looked at the words in surprise. Was it the same last time? It was too quick then, so he had no time to pay attention. Many people began climbing up. Among them was a young man with a sword. He stood in place for a long time. He then shook his head and sighed. It's not what I want. He then continued forward in dissatisfaction. Jiang Hao glanced at the person. He was also at the peak of the primordial spirit realm. His aura resembled a sharp sword with restrained sword intent. He was very strong. Fortunately, he had left. Jiang Hao didn't want to use his divine abilities recklessly. There was a chance of being discovered. After waiting for some time, Jiang Hao activated his divine ability, divine might. After veiling their perception, Jiang Hao approached the stone stele to start wiping. Unlike before, this stone stele was surprisingly dirty. After he wiped for a while, 2 blue bubbles popped up. Cultivation +1, lifeblood +1, so many? Jiang Hao was astonished, but he continued wiping. Strength +1, spirit +1, cultivation +1, spirit sword +1, spirit spear +1, lifeblood +1. As Jiang Hao wiped, a string of bubbles dropped. The speed at which they popped up made him happy. He had never expected there to be so many. Jiang Hao wiped slowly. He feared he might wipe the stone stele clean too quickly. He wondered if the last stone stele was special. Whenever the dirt was cleared, bubbles appeared. Although most were white or green, they were incomparable to the previous stone steelies. At that moment, his cultivation points were gradually increasing. He might not have to wait for a year to advance if this was the case. After a little while, Jiang Hao finished wiping the last corner. Lifeblood +1, a blue bubble fell. Looking at the clean stone steely, Jiang Hao felt reluctant to leave. He wiped it again to make sure he hadn't missed any spots. At the foot of Heavenly Steely Mountain, Yin Xuanyi looked at the peak. She stayed at the first stone steely. Jiang Hao would definitely pass through here. It would be much easier to find him this way. Unless he dared not come, she didn't believe anyone would reject such an opportunity. As long as she killed him, her thoughts would be clear, and it would help immensely with her cultivation. Perhaps there was a chance for her to reach the Soul Ascension realm. However, she couldn't concentrate on her cultivation. All she could think about was how Jiang Hao had humiliated her. Her complex emotions made her resonate with the first stone steely. For a moment, she entered an empty space where she saw only one figure who was using a divine ability. The colors of the sky and earth changed. Chapter 777, The Infinite Sword. After finishing wiping the last earth seal, Jiang Hao headed toward the 36 heavenly constellation spirits. However, after he left, many people noticed that something was amiss. They didn't realize that their perception had been played with, but they noticed that the stone steely before them was cleaner than before. What was going on? Several people looked around but found nothing. They just dismissed the matter. Upted on BX0vel. CM. By this time, Jiang Hao had reached the first stone steely of the heavenly constellation spirits. Guan Zhongfei was there. He stood in front of the first stone steely with his brows furrowed. He was the only one there. Jiang Hao didn't use his divine ability but walked over to him. Guan Zhongfei looked at the newcomer. Then, he immediately moved aside. The first heavenly constellation spirit's stone steely had some words written on it, fishing for moon in the well. Jiang Hao was speechless. Why was Heavenly Steely Mountain obsessed with wells? Jiang Hao's name was Jing in the Gathering, which meant wells. He was quite sensitive to that. He always felt it was somehow related to him. Apart from these words, there was nothing else on the stone steely. It's empty. Fishing for the moon in the well means rushing toward something that doesn't exist. Does it mean that this stone steely has nothing inside? Jiang Hao stood there and stared at it for a while. In the end, he decided to start wiping it. This sudden move surprised Guan Zhongfei. Jiang Hao didn't care about him and continued wiping the stone steely. Soon, bubbles started dropping. Cultivation +1, spirit +1, it wasn't much but passable. After a while, he reluctantly left. As the sole spectator, Guan Zhongfei was somewhat bewildered. He couldn't understand what the person in front of him was doing. He suddenly thought of a possibility. Could it be that fishing for the moon in the well means reaching out? Is he cleaning the stone steely to tell me to make contact? Otherwise, why would someone do this? Guan Zhongfei felt that the explanation was highly likely. He approached the stone steely and reached out. He sensed something. Soon, he felt that his hand had pierced through something. Then, he saw a figure. He held the sun and moon in his hands and plucked the stars in the sky. Jiang Hao arrived at the second stone steely of the heavenly constellation spirits. There were several people there, but they were all in a state of meditation. Outsiders usually found it challenging to interfere during this state. So, Jiang Hao felt at ease and began to wipe the steely clean. Further ahead, the stone steelies had less dirt on them. There were some bubbles, but rarely any blue ones. It was all right. There were still 36 steelies left. Since the time he had entered Heavenly Steely Mountain, he was only 180 bubbles away from ascension. The gap was gradually narrowing. The higher he went, the fewer people he saw. The last 15 stone steelies had no one. However, what surprised Jiang Hao was that he hadn't seen the young man with restrained sword intent all the way up. He didn't know which stone steely he had gone to. He arrived at the 35th Heavenly Constellation Spirit's steely and found no one there. He went all the way to the top, Jiang Hao was surprised. For the previous 107 steelies, no one was there, so it must be the last stone steely that everyone wanted to reach. Those who could reach that point were geniuses. Zhuang Yuzhen had also gone up but left no trace. I wonder if that person will leave something behind. Jiang Hao was puzzled but also very excited. Before, when he had wiped it, he had gotten all blue bubbles. Without thinking too much, Jiang Hao arrived at the 35th stone steely and started wiping. Cultivation +1, lifeblood +1, seeing 2 blue bubbles dropping at once, Jiang Hao felt that he might be about to advance. However, halfway through wiping, no blue bubbles appeared. It was regrettable. Fortunately, some more appeared later. After he finished, Jiang Hao headed toward the top. There must be someone up there. He didn't know if the person was in meditation. At the peak of Heavenly Steely Mountain, a young man silently gazed at the stone steely before him. He wasn't in a hurry to comprehend anything, especially since he had a feeling that someone was approaching from behind. After a while, footsteps sounded from behind. 2 people stood in front of the last stone steely. This was a rare occurrence. The young man turned to look at Jiang Hao. "I didn't expect it to be you," the young man said slowly. Jiang Hao felt helpless. The person seemed to be in a daze. "Do you know me, friend?" he asked. "No. I've only seen you down below and felt that you're somewhat extraordinary," the man said. Jiang Hao nodded slightly. He was unsure of what to do. The person was alert, and any rashness would be disastrous. "Im Jian Wuji from the Mountain Sea Sword Sect," said Jian Wuji politely. Smiling San Sheng. Jiang Hao bowed. Jian Wuji looked at the person in front of him. "We are in the same realm and can reach the highest peak, so I have an unfortunate request. Please do tell me, friend," Jiang Hao said courteously. "I want to test your strength." Jiang Hao shook his head. He didn't intend to fight. He had only come here to wipe the steely clean. Jian Wuji made a move, and a pitch-black sword fell to the ground. This infinite sword is part of the Mountain Sea Sword Sect's 7 extreme sky swords. If you win against me, you can take it away. What if I lose? Jiang Hao asked. Then, either leave the mountain or leave behind something of equal value, Jian Wuji said. And what if I refuse? Jiang Hao asked again. My sword's intent won't attack, but it will compel you to fight me, Jian Wuji said earnestly. Jiang Hao sighed. Shall we start then? Of course. Jian Wuji nodded. In an instant, the blade intent erupted, and the sword intent surged. After just a few clashes, the sword intent receded, and the blade intent disappeared. At that moment, Jiang Hao appeared in front of Jian Wuji. The two looked at each other. Jiang Hao walked to the side of the infinite sword, raised his sword, and walked toward the stone tablet. As he spoke, Jian Wuji realized that he was injured between his eyebrows. Blood trickled down. His eyes looked as though they had lost their light. This is the heavenly blade, Jiang Hao said calmly. Why didn't you kill me? Jian Wuji's aura began to recede. He hadn't held back. We aren't of the same era. Your time hasn't come yet. Such a person dying under the heavenly blade would be a shame, Jiang Hao said. Jian Wuji was indeed strong. Their paths were different, but it wasn't necessary to sever their connection just because of a match. With a thud, Jian Wuji fell to the ground and lost consciousness. Jiang Hao didn't exert too much force. He just ensured that Jian Wuji wouldn't be causing trouble for a while. In fact, Jiang Hao had the advantage of being in a higher realm. He had won unfairly. Jiang Hao impaled the infinite sword into the ground and left a note with it, those destined may obtain it. After that, he began wiping the stone steely clean. Chapter 778, Imitating the Stars in a Palm Ability. The infinite sword was not an ordinary sword. Jiang Hao could tell with just one glance. However, such a sword would undoubtedly attract attention from the Mountain Sea Sword Sect. He didn't need the trouble it would cause if he held on to it. However, sealing it away was a bit disappointing. It would be better to keep it for now. Upted on BX0vel. CM. The destined person was obviously Jian Wuji, who was unconscious presently. As for whether he would want it back, that remained to be seen. People had their own pride. So, he didn't directly hand it over to him but left it impaled in the ground. Jiang Hao looked toward the stone stele. This stone stele had no content, but he didn't care about the secrets it held inside. He just wanted to wipe it clean. Last time, he hadn't finished wiping it, so he couldn't afford to miss it now. Jiang Hao took out a piece of cloth. The same cloth had wiped the heavenly blade, the Shenyuan sword, and many other steles. He began wiping the stele on the spots where he had wiped before, and white bubbles fell from it. These were insignificant. Soon, he finished wiping the areas he had wiped before, but there were no blue bubbles. He then started wiping the spots he had missed before. Cultivation +1, lifeblood +1, here it comes. Lifeblood +1, he continued wiping. Cultivation +1, Jiang Hao was shaken. There were quite a few bubbles. However, after a few more wipes, they disappeared. Fortunately, shortly after, they reappeared. Some time passed in this manner. Jiang Hao stood desolately in front of the stone stele. He finished wiping it. He reached out to touch the stele and felt a bit regretful. There wouldn't be any blue bubbles appearing for several hundred years. Only when enough time had passed would blue bubbles appear again. Otherwise, there would only be white and green ones. It would only be a waste. Then, he sensed it. The stone stele changed. The blank stone stele now displayed some figures. Some held the sun and the moon, some danced with swords to cut rivers and lakes, some radiated the brilliance of sages, and some transformed into 9 figures. Within these figures, Jiang Hao saw a purple aura, within which sat a figure in meditation. That was him. Jiang Hao was quite surprised. It turned out there really was a figure inside. But what use was this? He looked at the various figures and eventually noticed that there were a total of 18 figures left on the stone stele, 3 of which had dimmed. Did the dimming of the 3 figures signify their deaths? Jiang Hao was puzzled. He withdrew his hand, and the figures disappeared. Jiang Hao didn't understand what was going on. He let it be since it didn't affect him. He then turned to leave. It was time to return to mining. Before leaving, he glanced at his interface. Lifeblood, 82-100, can be cultivated, cultivation, 79-100, can be cultivated. He was still a bit lacking, but it was close. Another 1 or 2 months of mining, and he could attempt advancing to a higher realm. However, a question remained: would he still be safe after advancement? With the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl, it shouldn't be too dangerous. But was it really okay to ascend to a higher realm under the influence of the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl? Jiang Hao sighed. He was unsure of what to do. Then, he headed down and found Dole. He left a message and disappeared from the spot. He had to return. Flying back would be a waste of time, so he teleported from there. With the subring in the mine, it was very convenient. Once again, he appeared in the mine within the 1,000-feet mountain. After examining the surroundings, he began mining. He wanted to ascend to the immortal ascension platform. He couldn't afford to miss opportunities here. As for the spirit herbs outside, they were too ordinary and wouldn't produce blue bubbles. Jiang Hao mined eagerly. 1 month later, around early August, Jiang Hao realized that there was still quite a way to go before he could advance. It would take him another month or so. The yield from the mine began to decline. Everything depended on luck here. Fortunately, there were other alternatives. He lacked just over 20 points more. He could try advancing to the immortal ascension platform in 1 or 2 months. He couldn't go on accumulating bubbles because the bubbles would vanish if his cultivation points were at their maximum. It was wasteful. It was better to wait for other opportunities and continue digging. Jiang Hao emerged from the mine and sat in the small wooden house that Dole had built. He discovered that he could indeed gather spiritual energy here, and the spirit herbs could survive. Dole's talent in formations is quite high, Jiang Hao said in surprise. He found that many people had good talents in formations, but he was completely clueless. Having spent too much time in the mine, his spiritual energy was completely depleted. He needed to rest for a day or two and take care of the spirit herbs so that he could prepare himself for more digging. 2 days later, Jiang Hao resumed mining. 7 days later, Dole and the others returned. Jiang Hao gave them the ores he had mined so they could sell them. Looking at the piled-up mountain of ores, Dole and Guan Zhongfei were shocked. Everyone else is seizing opportunities at Heavenly Steely Mountain, and you've been mining the whole time? Guan Zhongfei didn't dare ask that aloud. Friend Sansheng, did you have any trouble at Heavenly Steely Mountain? Dole asked. No trouble at all. I just prefer mining, said Jiang Hao. Dole hesitated for a moment. He then handed over a book. Take this. Jiang Hao was puzzled and took the book to take a look. He found that it contained various methods for forging. He had no idea about it. This is the profound forging technique I comprehended. I don't have talent in this area, so I'm giving it to you. Considering how skilled you are at mining, I assume you might be interested in this, Dole said in a low voice. Jiang Hao nodded and accepted it. Thank you very much, friend Dole. No problem. Dole shook his head. At that moment, Jiang Hao glanced at Guan Zhongfei. The latter's heart sank. He immediately said, I comprehended a supernatural power called stars in a palm. Although I really want to teach you, it's not recorded anywhere. I can't teach it if I haven't mastered it. What's it like? Jiang Hao asked because the name sounded somewhat similar to the universe in a palm ability that he had. I'll show it to you. Guan Zhongfei reached out toward a distant boulder. A force expanded and enveloped the boulder. Guan Zhongfei then closed his fingers and withdrew his hand. The boulder shrank and was trapped in the palm of his hand. Afterward, the force dissipated, and the boulder returned to its original size. You can't sustain it? Jiang Hao asked. Guan Zhongfei shook his head. Jiang Hao nodded. It seemed there was quite a gap in this ability when compared to universe in a palm. The supernatural power did seem to imitate it. However, the universe in a palm was just a technique, not a supernatural power. Supernatural powers were difficult to teach, but techniques were easier to learn. After thinking for a while, Jiang Hao began to imitate stars in a palm. Since he knew how to use universe in a palm, he might be able to imitate it. After a while, he reached out toward a stone. The stone shrank and was sucked into his hand. He didn't use any purple energy. When the force dissipated, the stone returned to its normal size. Guan Zhongfei was astonished. Did he just learn it? Jiang Hao wrote down his findings and handed them to Dole. Senior brother, please take a look at this. I feel like what I comprehended at Heavenly Steely Mountain is quite similar, but I've been feeling that something is not quite right. Dole agreed wholeheartedly. After that, Jiang Hao went back inside to continue mining. On the other side, Yin Xuanyi waited until Heavenly Steely Mountain disappeared, but the person she wanted to see didn't appear. She was puzzled. Did he really not care about opportunities? Chapter 779, Almost Time for Advancement at Moon Lake. It wasn't just Yin Xuanyi who was puzzled but also the woman in black robes and the people beside her. They were all perplexed. We didn't spot him. Why is that? The woman in black robes frowned. They had always assumed Jiang Hao would come here, but unexpectedly, he never showed up. Since the Heavenly Note sect is not an option, let's consider other alternatives, the man said calmly. Upted on BX0vel. CM with so many people here, there must be someone they could use. However, Yin Xuanyi had good cultivation, and there weren't many who could kill her. Fortunately, the 1,000 Feet Mountain was nearby. There should be many people there who could fight her. Let's first assess the situation around us and then devise a plan, the man said. The woman in black robes nodded. The people from the fallen immortal clan are about to arrive. What do you plan to do, senior brother? What are their intentions? The man asked. It's hard to say. Perhaps we'll know once they arrive, the woman in black robes said. Then, let's wait, said the man. They weren't in a rush. After all, they still needed to observe the 1,000 Feet Mountain. Perhaps they could gain something there. The opportunities at Heavenly Steely Mountain were for everyone, But there was a lot more freedom beyond that. Jiang Hao kept digging deeper into the mine. The mountain was vast and sloped downward, so he didn't have to worry about digging into other areas. However, the deeper he went, the more the spiritual energy was consumed. There was definitely something below, but no one knew what it was. It might be dangerous. Jiang Hao didn't want to keep digging down recklessly. He decided to first exhaust the surrounding ores before deciding. He wouldn't mind digging downward if there was a divine object below. There were rare ores present where the Shenyuan sword was located. It didn't seem like a good idea to dig downward. It would be better if he reached the Immortal Ascension platform first before digging down. From August to September, Jiang Hao continued digging. He glanced at his interface. Lifeblood, 96-100, can be cultivated, cultivation, 95-100, can be cultivated. He wasn't far from advancement. Another half a month or so, and he'd make it. He walked out and handed all the ores over to Dole and Guan Zhongfei. Over the past month, they found many different markets to sell them. They had made around 50,000 spirit stones. Guan Zhongfei was surprised to find that he had begun earning spirit stones. The profits were good. Moreover, they had only sold a portion of the ores. If they sold everything, they could earn quite a lot. He came here for opportunities, and unexpectedly, opportunities arose along with the spirit stones, especially with an unrelenting miner among them who did nothing but mine. Others cultivated or searched for opportunities, while he mined. Even when others rested after a long day, he kept mining. Someone having high cultivation was different, as expected. He could just go on mining. This person appeared to be virtuous. Otherwise, with such a high cultivation realm, he could have gone around pillaging and robbing others. However, that would cause a lot of trouble. Selling ores for spirit stones seemed like the most rational thing to do, especially in the Golden Core realm area and the Soul Ascension realm area. These two places were fairly safe. The only issue was that the people here were few. It slowed the sales down. If there are more people in their group, their profit would be less. "I'll be mining inside for about a month," Jiang Hao said. He intended to advance inside and didn't want to be disturbed. When the time came, he would activate the yin-yang bracelet and make it difficult for others to enter the cave. "That's great. It's perfect timing. We need to go out to sell the ores as well," said Dole. He handed Jiang Hao the 50,000 spirit stones and suggested they split them later. Given the potential risks of going out, leaving it with him would be safer. Guan Zhongfei was somewhat unwilling. He felt that once things were in Jiang Hao's hands, they would disappear. However, he didn't dare voice his opinion. "Senior brother Dole is right." Jiang Hao nodded and accepted the spirit stones. Although he felt a pang of longing raw Tnin spirit stones, any wouldn't take honor people's snare or Lieutenant Tnir was no need for that. Since the others trusted him, there was no need to betray them. After that, he turned and entered the mine. When it was time to come out, he would have advanced to the Immortal Ascension platform. To ensure safety, he buried a ring outside the mine and another one inside to prevent any accidents during his advancement. He was wary of accidents happening in the corpse realm itself. One of his worries had to do with the endless sea. He still didn't know what it was about, but he wanted to stay vigilant. Dole couldn't help but sigh when he watched Jiang Hao enter the cave again. Brother San Sheng really seems to love spirit stones. Otherwise, why would he mine relentlessly? Guan Zhongfei sighed. He had been worrying about his spirit stones and now felt like he might not get them back. But with so many ores at hand, he didn't feel like he was at a loss. If he were to leave now with the ores, it would be good, but why did he suddenly inform them that he would be mining for a month? Clearly, he had some other plan. He wasn't sure what Jiang Hao was planning and didn't dare to ask. Dole might be fearless in his ignorance, but he wasn't. However, he somewhat understood why the person had made him listen to Dole. Dole was indeed a decent person, but his personality caused some trouble for himself sometimes. All he could say was that Dole was a good person while Smiling San Sheng chose to be one. The former was a good senior, and the latter was someone who helped if a person was good and punished a person if they were bad. "We should quickly sell the ores we have," Guan Zhongfei said. All right. I'll set some formations around here to prevent detection, Dole said seriously. Guan Zhongfei genuinely admired the formations Dole set up. He was curious. Senior brother Dole, have you learned the technique mentioned earlier, the stars in a palm? Smiling San Sheng had written down the steps, so he was still studying it. Dole smiled awkwardly. Not yet. It'll take me some more time. After talking for a while, they started their work. Dole went to Moon Lake to sell the ores. Some people knew he was selling ores, while others tried to ambush him. He was always prepared. Several days later, he encountered a woman in black robes and a middle-stage Golden Core Realm man. These two had intentionally sought him out. Do you have something to say to me? Dole asked. We're here to buy ores, the woman in black robes said softly. Dole nodded. After negotiating, they agreed to buy some ores for 3,000 spirit stones. As Dole was about to leave, the woman in black suddenly asked, Who are you doing this for? For a senior at the 1,000-feet mountain, Dole said without hesitation. He always mentioned a make-believe senior to avoid trouble. The woman thanked him and didn't ask further. Then, she watched him leave. If we tell Yin Xuanyi that Jiang Hao is selling ores with this person, do you think she'd believe us? The woman in black suddenly asked. We'll only know if we try. The man chuckled. Chapter 780, Mental Demons that is quite troublesome. Why don't we handle it ourselves? Asked the woman in black. I heard she has a treasure on her. Once someone attacks or detects her aura, the people backing her might become aware of it. If you are confident that you can do it, try not to be discovered. The man chuckled. Then, I'll let the person behind the ore handle it. Someone who dares to come out and sell ores here must not be weak. If someone captures his people and kills them, he might resort to violent means, said the woman in black. If they don't succeed, we can just take their gains. Either way, we won't lose. The man chuckled again. Senior brother, you have a point. Now, let's see whether Yin Xuanyi believes us or not. The woman in black smiled. Upted on BX0vel. CM the two headed to where Yin Xuanyi was. Whether the plan succeeded or not wasn't important to them. They still had plenty of time. If necessary, there was another method. They could always spend spirit stones to hire someone to do the job. However, it was unnecessary to take direct action for now. As for who to assign the task, weren't the fallen immortal clan looking for someone? That would work out quite well. As for Jiang Hao, if he couldn't be used, then they could just forget him. His disappearance probably would do more harm than good. This was a dangerous place for a Golden Core Realm cultivator. They would just chalk it up to unfortunate timing if something were to happen. Soon, Yin Xuanyi received the news. She looked at the woman in black and frowned. Where did you get this information? From running errands for you. We might find him at the mines. Someone is selling ores at Moon Lake, so we can find out the location of the mine where He's at. I also heard that nobody at the mining site has a cultivation realm higher than you, said the woman in black. Is that so? Yin Xuanyi looked at her. Her voice was icy. What if you're just trying to use me? My cultivation realm speaks for itself. If I was using you, you could easily kill me, said the woman in black. If you were to kill me here right now, I don't think I can even defend myself. Boom. Yin Xuanyi struck the woman in front of her. Then, she left. She intended to seek out the person selling ores. She didn't know if the information was accurate, but she wanted to check for herself. As for the woman in black, how dare she think him so naive? It was obvious she had a hidden agenda. Why would she spare her? Once Yin Xuanyi left, the woman in black walked out from the shadow. She sighed. She's truly heartless. Let's wait until the ore seller takes her to the mines. Well, follow them discreetly, the man said. After entering the cave, Jiang Hao didn't think of anything else and continued mining. He stopped after almost half a month because he received the final blue bubble. Cultivation +1, he checked the interface again. Vitality, 100-100, can be cultivated, cultivation, 100-100, can be cultivated. Finally, it's time. Putting away his tools, Jiang Hao brought out the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. He strengthened the seal before sitting down and preparing for advancement. This advancement might not be as quick as before. A major boundary had to be breached, and the corpse realm was a dangerous place. He couldn't be sure what might happen during his advancement here. However, he had prepared a lot for this, so there shouldn't be anything he couldn't handle. His body was suppressed by the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. The pearl wouldn't erupt. He had made sure of that. However, he wasn't sure if this would have any effect on his cultivation. With various precautions in place, he hesitated and took out some other divine items. The Immortal Mountain Sea Shield and the Primordial Heavenly Blade were among them. This made him feel much more at ease. He closed his eyes and adjusted his state. He then began extracting his cultivation and lifeblood. In an instant, Jiang Hao felt a surge of massive spiritual energy. His body started undergoing noticeable changes. His strength increased rapidly. Jiang Hao felt the changes and constantly circulated the Hong Meng Heart Sutra. At that moment, his body was covered in purple energy and filled with the essence of Hong Meng. The power of the sutra gradually manifested. Jiang Hao emitted a mysterious aura. His brows were tightly knit. This advancement wasn't as smooth as had hoped. At that time, he maintained his true self and immersed himself completely. However, for some reason, his thoughts began to wander. Memories of his childhood, past experiences, Xiao Li's life and death, Lin Ji's regrets, Chu Chuan's efforts, and even the carefree nature of the spirit beast flashed through his mind. Other than that, he also saw Cheng Chou's ordinary life and the struggles of ordinary non-cultivators in the spirit herb garden. In just a few decades, he had seen a lot and had been involved in many things. He could understand these emotions and could understand their pain. These emotions held him back, and his advancement became unstable. It was like a mental demon. Jiang Hao didn't know why his thoughts suddenly wandered. However, his pursuit of the cultivation path had never changed, so he calmed himself down. It wasn't about erasing his thoughts but facing them calmly. He knew he had regrets and unresolved trauma. But people ultimately had to face them. It was unavoidable. Regardless of who they were, they had to confront these things. In a daze, he heard the sound of waves. Jiang Hao didn't know where it came from, but he couldn't act rashly. He could only face it calmly. He had to try to peacefully break through. This advancement indeed didn't happen so quickly. After 3 days of maintaining his state, everything finally calmed down, and the ascension proceeded smoothly once again. This time, there wasn't much time. Jiang Hao seemed to have broken open a door, and his power underwent a drastic transformation. A completely new force spread throughout his body. Jiang Hao opened his eyes and found that he was still in the cave. The Earth Extreme Silent Pearl was glowing. The Primordial Heavenly Blade and other things were also there. At that moment, he sensed the power of the Immortal Ascension platform. He had successfully advanced to the early stage of the Immortal Ascension platform. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. After that, he glanced at his interface. He had no extra cultivation points to refine his newly achieved realm. He was helpless. He would have to spend another 5 days to refine his cultivation. 5 days later, Jiang Hao got up and checked his surroundings. He vividly remembered hearing the sound of waves. However, when he looked around, he didn't notice anything. His senses didn't pick up anything either. Was I almost pulled into the sea? Jiang Hao couldn't be sure. At that time, he couldn't afford any distractions, so he waited. What exactly happened? He didn't have an answer. Then, he looked at the 9 nether. What did you see? The 9 nether thought for a moment. Then, it transformed into waves. Jiang Hao wondered if that meant that the sea had actually appeared. How did it appear? This time, the 9 nether couldn't answer. Jiang Hao felt horrified. He hadn't noticed it. Besides, with the yin-yang bracelet on, how did the waves enter the range of protection? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.